What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the UFC card from the Apex for this weekend. And it's definitely encountered some fight variance over the last couple of days. We're going to be doing this breakdown without one of the prices from DraftKings, but I think that's fine. Um, I'll give you some of these guidelines on what we think about that. We did lose a couple of fights. We lost a couple of fighters, and we're just going to just go from what we have. First of all, first of all, it is now a 12 fight card. So again, when we look at it in terms of analysis, you have a 12 fight card. It's usually very very difficult to get unique without engaging in a little bit of funny business with respect to lineup building. That being leaving money on the table, going for deliberately low owned fighters that obviously don't have too much of a chance. I don't say too much of a chance. Everybody's got a chance, but when you're trying to get unique and on a 12 fight card, you are going to have to take lineups that just don't project as well as the better lineups. That's just the way it goes, and just hope that they win often enough to make up for that. Um, the thing that the card has going for it, though, is that the 5 round main event, which usually you know garners a lot of the ownership, it's not a fight that you have to play. And that's again one of the guidelines for how good of a card it is from a GPP perspective. When you have a 5 round fight that's kind of a lock, to be honest, I mean, we talked last week that I just didn't think there's any way you could have faded this Garcia Onama fight. That wasn't because it was 5 rounds, just because it was just going to be a car crash one way or the other, and the pricing was just too good. You just had to lock that one in. And the weekend before, I thought that Dern uh, Jand Verna Jandadoba fight was a lock. You had to lock that one as well. So when you have situations like that, ownership becomes very, very high, and it becomes a lot more difficult to get unique. But when you have a 5 round fight, which is not a lock, which is, I think, the case this week, it does bring this card to an acceptable level with respect to how whether you could play it without going too crazy. So I would say it's the equivalent of a 13 fight card with a chalky main event, which is fine. I mean, I really think you can get some stuff done this week. The other thing I would say is that it doesn't feel like a particularly high scoring card. Now, keep in mind that I think the last 2 times I said that, the card completely smashed. But nonetheless, let's go. We're going to go from the bottom of the card, at least in this order here. Again, DraftKings has it in different orders, and we'll try to do this the best we can. But we have Jackson McVeigh versus Zach Reese. I will dispense with all the gyrations that led us to get to this fight, but this is where we are. And the only thing I can promise you is that Jackson McVeigh is going to get no ownership, and it's not going to be played because he was priced at 7,900 in a kind of pick 'em matchup with Robert Valentin. And now he's going to be up against Zach Reese, who's going to be probably a plus, minus 300 or very least minus 250 favorite. So Jackson McVeigh, he was already priced. So at 7,900, he's, mathematically completely unplayable. Okay. And the only other problem is the only time I would play something like this, if the money line value was that bad, was if his opponent was going to be extraordinarily popular. And the thing is that McVeigh is actually going to be priced. Excuse me. Reese is going to be priced, pretty efficiently. Now I don't know what his price is going to be. It's coming in today, but I would imagine. Well, we could probably try to figure this out. I mean, why not? We sort it by salary. They don't like to put the same price tag for different fighters. So where are they going to slide him in? Boy, this is tough, huh? Well, I'll say this. If they don't want to dupe these salaries, there's only 2 things they can do, and one would make him almost unplayable, and the other one would make him probably a lock. So again, I don't know if it's the rule, because I think they have done it where they've given people the same price tag, but if they go by what they used to do, is just make sure you have one fighter from each price range or price, then they have to either make him 9,500 or not, or 8,900. Oh, excuse me, or 8,800. because Gomes is here. And I will tell you this, I don't know what these, what the inside the distance line is going to be here, but it's probably going to be minus 110 or something like that. And in either case, at 8,800, if that's where he comes in, that's going to be an incredibly difficult fade. Okay. Where on the other hand, if he gets priced in at 9,500, it's probably too expensive. So we have to wait and see. And now if they put him in where he probably should be mathematically, maybe like 92 or 9,300. I mean, what they really should do, but they don't, so they don't do dynamic pricing. They don't factor in upside. They just look at money line. Like if they really want to make this accurate, what they probably do is put Cavalcante down to 8,800 and then slide Reese into 9,200 because Cavalcante, while she's a big favorite, she doesn't really have a lot of upside with her style. So that's what they would do if they really kind of try to handicap this, but they just go by money line. So I don't know where they're going to put him in, but that's something to look for. I would say that if he's 8,800, like smash play. And if he's 9,500, probably not much of a play at all. And in either case, Valentine is, well, hold on a minute, not Valentine. What I was going to say is that if in fact they make Reese 8,800, and then his money line is inside the distance line, comes out like minus 150 or something, making him on the metric sort of a lock, then all of a sudden this McVay sort of comes into play, only because, not because of his metrics, because at 7,900 it's not going to look good no matter what you do, but he's going to have incredible leverage. So I think that's what I would actually recommend is that if he slides in at 8,800 and the inside the distance line comes out like minus 150, then I think you could actually play some McVay with some kind of really speculative leverage here. Otherwise, it's just going to be, otherwise you're just going to play, what's his name? Reese at 8,800, definitely a good play. 9,500, probably a little bit too much. Okay. Miles Johns versus Daniel Marcos. Extraordinarily, poor inside the distance line, if I'm not mistaken here. Marcos, very, very good striker, some good volume. Miles Johns has some cardio issues from time to time. He can wrestle. But I'm sure when we look at the inside the distance line, it's not going to look like a particularly strong fight. Yeah, so Johns inside the distance is minus a million, plus a million. And even Marcos inside the distance, like plus 400. I mean, that is just renders this completely unplayable, I believe. Well, hold on a minute. Nah, 8,500 at that price, that's really tough. 8,500 inside the distance, but nope, the whole fight's just going to be a fade. Tisha Torres versus Denise Gomes. I mean, I imagine that Gomes is the favorite for good reason. I mean, she's also pretty aggressive. And again, Tisha Torres, she in the past has gotten some takedowns. It doesn't feel like this is going to be the case in this fight. So I don't know. I don't really know how Pennington gets there, in this spot. I mean, I will say that she has back class. I mean, she did beat Angela Hill. She lost to Mackenzie Dern, but she was like, it was back in 2022, but it was like a pick 'em against Dern. She was a pick 'em against Ricci, lost a split decision. She did beat Esparza. But I don't know. I think Gomes has got to be the side here. But let's take a look at her inside the distance line. Gomes inside at minus 350 or something. That's just no good. And that's just no good. What about her takedowns? Now, the thing is, she has some takedowns. I mean, her last fight against Elise Reed, she had 3 takedowns. 2 fights before that against Eduardo Mora, she had 2 takedowns. She had 1 against Angela Hill. She had 2 against Luma Lupumi back several fights ago. She lost that one, but she's gotten a lot better since then. She didn't get any takedowns against Kovalkiewicz. She did get a lot of control time though. I don't know about any of this. I mean, it just feels like just a low metric, low fantasy point projection fight, So again, I just assume just not play it. But I'm saying 150 max, I mean, sure. But I don't particularly like either of these fighters' metrics here. Josh Hokett versus Max Jimenez. So now we're going to have, someone who's probably minus 200 inside the distance. We'll take a look at him. Oh, yeah. Like minus 200 inside the distance. I bet you his round one is probably plus 300 or something like that, which is really good. Oh, my God. Even his round one is plus 150. I mean, I know we've never heard of him. And I know it seems like really dirty to play some guy who's never beaten anybody like this. And his opponent is apparently this well decorated jujitsu guy, with a lot of belts and stuff like that. But I mean, the line is what it is, So his price of, let's pull this up here. I mean, that inside the distance line, considering we've talked about so far, I mean, you just got to have to play this, right? So Hokett certainly looks like a very, very good favorite here. And Jimenez, because Hokett's going to look very good for all the reasons I just mentioned, Jimenez, you just kind of have to play him as some leverage in 150 max. I mean, you wouldn't want to play him in 3 max or anything like that, but in 150 max, that's always what you're supposed to do is find the fighter who looks amazing and make sure you get a little bit of the other side just because of the leverage that you're going to get against an obviously popular fighter. Okay, Jacqueline Cavalcante versus Mayra Buena Silva. Unfortunately, I think I'm sort of self-banned from analyzing this fight because I'm extraordinarily biased, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Jacqueline Cavalcante, when I went out to Vegas, not this August, but the August before, I brought my daughter, and Jacqueline Cavalcante was fighting on the card, and she had a real good entourage there with her, like 6 or 7 of her friends or whatever. They were rooting for her, and she won a pretty close fight against pretty bad opponent, really, in Estela Nunez. Is it Estela Nunez? It was one of the Nunez's. Um, and I mean, she looked good enough, and but the thing is that we actually got a chance to talk to her after, and she's so nice. She's so sweet. She talked to my daughter. I have a picture of her with my daughter. We met her. We met Jackie's girlfriend. I don't know if there's her wife or girlfriend. Everybody associated with the Jacqueline Cavalcante experience. I mean, just so much respect. So she became sort of like my favorite fighter, just to kind of root for. And she has won like the last 2 fights. Problem is that she's certainly not even remotely viable in DFS. She's exactly the opposite of what you want in DFS. I mean, you have someone who's coming as a favorite pretty much every week, but she doesn't put up a lot of finishes, and she doesn't grapple. So it's unfortunately someone that I'm gonna have to root for, but I'm just never gonna be able to play in DFS. The reason why I'm kind of self-banning from this fight is that everything in my brain tells me that you're supposed to play Mayra Buena Silva here. Um, she is coming off of 3 straight losses, but it doesn't take a genius to see like the caliber of these losses is just amazing. And it's not that she was particularly competitive either. I mean, like she got obliterated in all 3 of these. I mean, I was at actually the Pennington fight. She had nothing to offer. I mean, I know it says 3 takedowns here, but I think Pennington had I mean, must have been like 30 minutes of control time. I don't know what the stat is. Now I was there. I didn't see it this way. I don't know where her 10 minutes of control time were, but she got wrecked. Okay. But nonetheless, it was against Racky Pennington. And then Macy Chason. That wasn't so great. And she did get really just abused by Jasmine. But she did get the sub over home as an underdog. And she does have a lot of subs on her record. And Cavalcanti has not really shown, not that she's had the chance yet, but she has not shown me or anybody that she can, get in there against a really, accomplished grappler, So I think that if anything, I would play the Mayra Buena Silva side. I think she's very live for a sub here. And obviously she gets a sub. She's getting there at 7K. But I'd rather not do it because I want to root for Jackie. I will say that Jackie in DFS is probably completely unplayable for all the reasons I mentioned. If anything, I think Mayra Buena Silva would be the side here in DFS. Okay. Moving on, we have Jamil Emmers versus Hyder Emil. Okay, so this one is a car crash. There's a couple coming, and I think this one is, a fight you have to just lock it. And whether I say lock it, I don't know if that means actually 100%, but it's going to be difficult to not play this fight. I mean, the inside the distance line, I think for both these guys is pretty good. Um, Emil inside, plus, what is this? Like plus 140. Even Emmer's inside, like plus 190 at 8,200 8K. I mean, you have to play this. I have no idea who you're supposed to play. I guess Emil is kind of the sexier play because he always comes, kind of gets after it. But I think Emmer's is just as likely to get a big score as Emil, honestly. So I think both these guys are very, very in play. One thing I will say is that you do have Emil at 8,200, and I have a feeling for some reason that Emil is going to be the higher projected fighter. Not just because of the money line being minus 130, but he's got this perception as being a lot more aggressive. So I think that people are going to play a lot more Emil than Emmers. So one of the things you can do is in your Emil lineups, just swap them to Emmers. And you're going to get a very good play at artificially reduced ownership because when the optimizers kind of like run everything, if they have 8,200 to spend and this fight has not been allocated yet, it's going to give you Emil. That's just the way it goes. So if instead you take Emmers there, you're getting, Emmers, which is who's going to be pretty popular anyway, but in that particular construct, that lineup is going to be particularly low owned. So I think that since it's only 200 to give up, you're not like, and there's no real great spend up that you need to get to. I mean, honestly, that I think that this is something you could do on this card is play Emil lineups and then swap them to Emmers. And then you can build more Emil lineups also, but you don't have to do all your Emil lineups. But there's some amount of Emil lineups that you should just swap to Emmers and take the ownership discount. Maybe what you can do is if you do any kind of analysis where you're projecting some Emil lineups to be duped, instead of just eliminating them, which you might do otherwise, take those lineups and then drop the 200 there. I think that makes some sense. Okay. We skipped Ricky Simone versus Jaime Barcelos. Jaime Barcelos. So this one it really could go a lot of ways. You have both these guys who are pretty good grapplers. Barcelos, just very, very good grappler, okay wrestler. Then you have Simone, he's got a lot of power, and he can also get the wrestling going. But it's not as if this is guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like both these fighters are getting up there a little bit. And even Simone, like from time to time, can be a little fishy. Like, here we go. Well, 2 takedowns. I guess he always has some, right? 2 takedowns. So he has at least 2 takedowns literally every fight. So that's actually a pretty good floor. Like that's actually makes this a pretty good play. Here he had 3 takedowns against Smotherman. This was a train wreck against Basharaz, the big underdog. We had him here. Good amount in DFS. And Barcelos, I mean, he really read the program, so to speak, against Talbot, meaning that he knew that the only way he was going to win was to get takedowns, and he came in as a huge underdog and just dominated. Just very, very good fight IQ. Okay, Umar, whatever, he got caught. But he's another guy. He gets a bunch of takedowns, and he gets someone he needed. And, I've heard it argued that whenever you have 2 good grapplers, it kind of cancels each other out. It becomes a kind of a strike, kind of a boring striking match. And it sounds like something you'd say in theory, but in reality, I mean, you got these grapplers. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. This is why I had no problem locking in that Dern Vandedova fight. Is that whenever you have these grapplers, and that's going to be their path, there's just way too many points that's going to be out there. I don't know which one of them is going to get them because there's going to be reversals. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen. I don't think this is as much of a lock though as that Dern fight because. Again, something about the age of these fighters makes me want to believe that this could end up being a little more boring than people are wanting. So I'm not going to go 100% of this one, but I definitely think that between all the different grappling exchanges, there's certainly upside. Now, again, when you look at the inside the distance lines, you're not going to be particularly impressed. Probably both plus 400, I'm guessing. Yeah, something like that. So, you're going to get there only from your grappling. And normally that's not enough. But, this card is not that ripe with upside. So I think that where a shout out to Big Marley from Shipping Nation, he likes to do it in terms of stars. I don't make this a 5-star, but maybe like a 3.5 to 4-star. All right, Ismail Bonfim versus Chris Padilla. Let's just make sure that there's no money line stuff going on here. Go back to Tulio is out. We're out of order. Let's do Bonfim, Padilla first. So Bonfim is 9K versus 7,200. Money line seems good. So we're going to need probably a minus 110 inside the distance line to make this work, and it's just no good. You know what I mean? It's like plus 260. That's just not what you want. And so he's going to be a very, very poor metrics, and he's going to be a bad play. It's not like he has an incredible amount of grappling upside, so that's just no good. Let's see. Padilla inside. I mean, I almost prefer Padilla inside. He's inside the distance line is pretty much the same. Is he a guy that can get? Yeah, look at it. He's got some stuff. He's got knockouts. He's got subs. So I actually prefer the Padilla side here. So yeah, that's actually the second. We're getting there. So that's like the second decent punt, actually, that we talked about here. So Buena Silva, Padilla. Now, obviously, the underdogs in these Emil fights, and hey, you play a little Jimenez as far as a punt goes, and then the Simone fight, you could certainly play Barcelos. But this is, I think this is pretty decent with his inside the distance line being as good as it is. So I do like Padilla here. All right. So going back to Marco Tulio versus Chris Leroy Duncan. Tulio is minus 175 at 8,700. It's not the greatest money line in the world. I have this feeling that his inside the distance line is not going to be great, but maybe. Let's see. Marco Tulio inside. Yeah, so plus 200. I was afraid of this. He's not particularly great at 8,700. 8,700 plus 200 inside in the absence of a lot of takedowns, which I don't think is really the way this fight is going to go. I'm not a big Tulio guy here as far as DFS is concerned. Matter of fact, let's see Leroy Dunk. He's 350. Now, I much prefer the Padilla. Padilla has a better inside the distance line than Duncan, and is 400 cheaper. So, yeah, I think the Tulio Duncan fight is probably 2-star or something like that. We talked about Bonfim Padilla, and now we have Uros Medic versus Muslim Salikov. All right. I have a feeling that we're going to want to play this. You have Medic is minus 155, and he's 8,800. That's not great. It's a little bit, it's certainly a little bit of line value on Salikov, if you want to know the truth. I just wanted to see something real quick about Salikov. I just want to see if he ever gets takedown. Yeah, he gets takedowns every once in a while. But I'll tell you, his last 2 fights, just KO. I could not believe this guy's on a 3-fight winning streak like it's nothing. He's 40 years old. And you know what? He's got a good matchup here because Medic, although he's got power, he gets cracked like quite a bit. He was getting destroyed by Semmelsberger before he came back to win. His last fight, he got dropped by Gilbert Urbina in the first 20 seconds before he came back to win. So this fight's pretty dangerous here. Let's take a look at the inside the distance line. Well, first of all, Medic inside minus 110 at his price. That's amazing, right? And Medic at 8,800 minus 110. The only buy that might get, oh my God, you know what I just noticed? Just noticed that Medic is actually 8,800. So you know what? They have no choice, I think, with respect to what's his name? Reese. They could either make him 9,500 or nothing, or dupe a salary. It's their only choice. So what are they going to do? Oh, you know what they could do? They can make him 9,100. No, because Giannis is out. That, you know what? That's what they're going to do. They're going to make. I think they're going to make Reese 9,100 to replace Giannis, and that's going to make him fair. I think his inside this line is going to be -110. So I think that, yeah, that's what I think they're going to do. But we'll probably find out by the time you guys watch this. All right. So going back to the Salikov fight, we'll take a look at the inside the distance lines. Medic inside -110, very strong for his price. And I imagine that Salikov's inside is going to be good here. Plus 220 at, you know, at plus 220 7,400. That's just incredible. So good underdog Salikov, good underdog Padilla. Okay, we'll compare these underdogs in a minute. Between Silva, Padilla, and Salikov. We're going to compare those after we get done with the main event. Well, first we get to Joseph Morales versus Matt Schnell. I mean, he's -450. Let's see what his inside the distance line is. Very strong, -120 or something like that. It's not great, but it's not bad. See if any takedowns. Yeah, he also gets 2 takedowns from time to time here. So, yeah, I mean, he's perfectly reasonable. And here you have the opponent who just doesn't win often enough. So Morales, very, very good favorite. Matt Schnell, no good as an underdog. And then we get to the main event. As I mentioned, it's a 5-round fight, and it's going to get ownership. But, I mean, it doesn't rate to be particularly high scoring, especially for Randy Brown. I mean, he's going to be all striking here, I think. And unless he gets a knockout, I mean, he's not really going to be able to score all that well. I mean, we'll take a look at his inside the distance line here. Brown inside like plus 320. I mean, he's going to be owned. So this is not particularly great, I don't think. Bonfim inside -110. I mean, this is very, very strong. Okay, not to mention that he can get takedowns. I mean, his price he's only 8,500. I mean, this is sort of ridiculous. So maybe this is going to be really popular. But nonetheless, very, very strong for Bonfim. I'm not, Randy Brown only for leverage, I guess. But I guess that's fine. I mean, Randy Brown for leverage. I guess that is certainly something to consider. So let's kind of rank all these. And let's think about this. I'll put it to you this way. Why is Salikov probably the best of the underdogs? And then like some of the chess videos, I'll say, well, you could pause the video and then come up with the answer, whatever. Okay, pause the video. Okay. The reason why Salikov is the best of those underdogs is, number one, he's got a really, really strong inside the distance line, and Medic has his own strong inside the distance line, meaning that Medic is going to be popular. So if Medic has become popular, then of all these underdogs, he's going to probably get the most leverage. So he's probably the best of these. But Padilla, very, very good underdog. Buena Silva, probably the worst, just because Cavalcanti is going to be 10% owned. I mean, no one's going to play with those metrics. I think Padilla is probably second best. And then I think Brown, probably third best, only because, he himself is going to be a little too popular. He's going to get leverage against Bonfim, which is good. That probably puts him ahead of Bueno Silva. But I think I put him behind Padilla. So I would rank the underdogs. Salikov, Padilla, then Brown, then Bueno Silva. And then obviously those mid-range fights we already talked about. Okay, that is going to do it. Look for that pricing on the Zach Reese fight. And I'm going to try to find time to do a lineup construction video. But if not, good luck, everybody.